welcome to the latest edition of Downs Your Way. This is edition 7 and it's the first one of 2020, so I shall take this opportunity to say Happy New Year to our listener, wherever you are. Today I'm delighted to be with Nigel Darvill, our keys player, and I'm actually in Nigel's lair, deep in the basement of his home in the south of Birmingham, in his own personal studio with everything that you might expect to see there. More keyboards than you can shake a stick at, including computer keys, a mixing desk, loudspeakers, various posters on the wall. And I suppose this is really a return to the Back to the Start series. I'm hoping to get around to interview all the band members in due course. Obviously spoken to Steve and Rebecca. And today it's Nigel. So Nigel, welcome to our podcast.
Hello. Hi, Colin. Hi, everybody.
So what we've done with the others is really started right at the beginning. So go right back. So where and when did Nigel Darvill appear in the world?
I come from Redditch, which you may also know as the birthplace of John Bonham. So, I'm from Redditch. That's where I was born and bred. And my dad played the organ at the local church. And so he sent me for piano lessons when I was but a lad. I wasn't that keen on them at start. I'd rather have been playing football and all the other things that you do when you're a 6 or 7 year old. But anyway, I took to it quite well. And then when I got into my early teens, I decided I didn't really like playing all the classical pieces I was being taught for exams and things. And I started playing a bit of rock and roll and a bit of blues at a youth club, actually. And then started to put some little bands together with my mates. We used to play in each other's front rooms, whoever had a piano I could go and bang on, and all of that. And I tried everything. I tried to play guitar, harmonica, bass, but I kept coming back to playing keys. I tried all the other instruments because to be in a band then, it was quite difficult to carry a piano around, and I didn't have anything electronic at that stage until I bought a second-hand organ when I was about 17, I think, 16, 17. I managed to get a second. It wasn't a posh one. It wasn't brilliant at all, but it meant I could actually start to play in a couple of bands, and that's, you serve your apprenticeship doing that, playing lots of little gigs. Then I suppose some of these bands really went anywhere, to be quite honest. I used to really enjoy going and seeing lots of people, so the bands I used to go and watch then would have been, I still like watching Deep Purple, The Nice, Led Zeppelin. I saw all those bands, and that was I think those sort of influencing bands of the time that really got me. And then I had the opportunity when I was around I was about 20, when I was able to join a band properly, which meant I was in a backing band. And so it was made up with me. For that, I then bought a Hammond organ, and I had a dreadful electronic piano of the time. Anyway, I had a couple of keyboards. We had a guitarist, drummer, bass player, and we were a backing band. And the first artist we backed was Dwayne Eddy, who I'd not really heard of, who's obviously the king of twang. He was absolutely brilliant, and he had this very loud guy with him, played saxophone, and that was a great introduction to the discipline of learning songs and playing them and getting them right. And we played some fantastic shows with that. And I did my very first recording session with that, which was a John Peel session, funnily enough,
right,
at Maida Vale. And that was the first time I'd ever seen a recording studio. And then we did some other artists as well, a guy called Johnny Tillotson the year after. And then I ended up playing for Edwin Starr for a year with that band.
Right, okay.
So that was all War and SOS, and those were... Now these sorts of... You think this is really glamorous. We did 2 shows every night.
Really?
Bands.
Yeah.
So you didn't do it. You did a show somewhere like in the middle of Norfolk, and then one in the centre of London, same night.
Blimey.
Yeah. And then if in Birmingham, it was one in Coventry, one in the centre of Birmingham.
But and you had to shift the kit, or did you have kit?
No. There's 4 of you in the band. You set up, you played the show, broke it down, went to the next one, set up, broke it down.
Good grief.
And went to the next one. And they did that all in the UK, Europe, and a lot in Germany, and Belgium, Holland, a few in France. Even Luxembourg, played in Luxembourg once.
Crikey.
So anyway, that was my apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So
but were you a full-time musician then?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So,
yeah, wasn't time to do anything else.
no, it doesn't sound like it was 2 gigs a night.
I mean, it was great as an apprenticeship. Like all apprentices, didn't make a lot of money.
Well, nothing's changed.
All I ever wanted to be was in the band.
Yeah.
I never got the making money bit right for ages. Because, I don't know, we weren't getting paid a fortune, but it was great fun. It was good to do.
And what sort of size audiences were you going out in front of at that stage?
Well, my first gig was the Lyceum.
Right.
In London, so it's a big theatre gig, so there's a couple thousand people there.
Yeah, yeah.
We did one with Dwayne. We did the rooftop cafe bar at Bieber's in Kensington. That was quite well attended. I don't know. Some were clubs, little clubs, 300 or 400 people.
Right. Okay.
Some were bigger shows. And with Edwin, we did lots of American air bases.
Right. Yeah. I can imagine.
Some of those big audiences for some of those shows.
Yeah.
And clubs. So clubs, you got from like 200 to 500, 600 people in some of the clubs, maybe even more. Some depends.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where next after that?
I joined a band in Birmingham. Then I got fed up being the backing band stuff. I wanted to join a band. I joined one in London for a bit. That didn't work out. So I did join one in Birmingham called Hooker, which was in the late 70s, mid 70s, late 70s.
Yeah.
And that was with James Langston, who'd been in Tea Symphony, and Bob Boucher, Mark Bristow, and a drummer called Ray Meadows at the time.
Yeah.
And then it's had some personnel changes over the years. We were a great band. We actually did New Faces.
Oh, right.
Around the time, like when Lenny Henry did all that. We didn't win a dog and a bloke one, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's the equivalent. What would that be the equivalent of now? Like Britain's Got Talent, would it? Yeah. Just to put it into perspective for those of you who are not familiar with it.
And then that band changed. When punk happened, then we had to change some things. So we ended up being called the Mean Street Dealers, having done. We had a few name changes. One was School Sports, one was Mean Street Dealers, then became the Dealers. But what were the Mean Street Dealers? There's a very iconic gig in Birmingham called the Railway, which a lot of people played, and the Barrel Org and all those other pub gigs. And we used to play those. And at the Railway, we actually recorded a live album using a Rolling Stones mobile. Somehow we got that, and Bob Lamb recorded it and produced it, and we did a single got released from it called Japanese Motorbikes, and an album. We did 1,000. It was crowdfunding in the early stages. We got all of our fans to buy a voucher to help us pay for the recording.
Okay, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So they got an album at a better price and with some other stuff, maybe a poster or something we put with it, I can't remember. And so that paid for the recording of the album, then the rest of them we then sold.
Right.
So, so that was like an independent resourcefulness.
Excellent.
So that was that. And then I stopped it about in the early 80s. That band, like all bands sometimes, it kind of reached the end of its when it became the Dealers, it reached the end of its life of being able to, like, we got produced by Vangelis at one point, and you're trying to do all these things to become successful, and eventually it kind of fell apart really, and people started doing other stuff. So that was that. So then I went back to being a backing musician again. So I actually I did a session, a studio session for Ruby Turner, and that was just playing second keys for a live recording for Radio 2 broadcast. And then I ended up, because the other keyboard player was Bob Wilson at the time, he had to go and do an album with, I think he did an album with Roy Harper. In fact, it was, and he couldn't do some gigs, so I ended up doing the gigs. And when he came back, we had 2 keyboard players because it was the 1980s. So I worked with Ruby for a few years, did lots of shows,
including, I should interject and say, a Top of the Pops, which is on YouTube.
We did Glastonbury as well.
Yeah, I shall dig out the link and put it in the blurb at the bottom of the podcast so that people can take a look for themselves. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So that included Glastonbury. We did the Montreux Jazz and Blues Festival, which was a fantastic.
That's big, isn't it?
That was big.
Yeah.
They rang me up and asked me what keyboards I wanted to use. Would you want to use the grand piano and the Hammond organ? I said, yeah, okay.
Okay.
You know. So those with Ruby, that was a great time. That was a really good band. I really enjoyed that time. And then when Ruby started to do did an album then, and it was a promotion for that. We did Top of the Pops and all the rest of it. But at the same time, I was also became a keyboard player for the Fine and Cannibals, and I did all the touring for their first album, which involved. So we did. Well, one of the first things I did with them was the whistle test, which was great. That was something I always wanted to do. And then we went to America, did Europe. We went back to America again, and we did the first tour we did in America was our own promotional tour. That was all clubs. The second tour we did, we opened with the UB40 on the Rat in the Kitchen tour.
Yeah.
And so that was much larger venues.
I mean, curiously, that's when you entered my consciousness, when you were with the Fine Young Cannibals. I struggle to know why, in a sense, because you did, as you say, you did one tour with them, and all, but the name stuck with me more so actually because I think if like 15 or 20 years later you'd asked me the name of the lead singer, I'd have probably forgotten it. But I was a great fan of them, and I think they did 2 albums, did they? I can't remember.
Yeah.
They did 2 albums. I had both the albums,
yeah.
And I remember you being. And that's when I kind of left it. And then time went by, and then Rebecca said to me one day she said, blah, 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 Nigel Darvill. And what, used to be with the Fine Young Cannibals, said I. And she said, oh, yes. How did you know that? And I struggle to think now, bearing in mind the role you played in about how, that was the case. But yeah, that's when I first remember being aware of you. So anyway, sorry. So do continue. So you did a tour, you did that, the first album and the tour with them, and then
I met them while they were doing the first album.
Right.
I met them because I used to go and pick them up from the studio in my car to make some money. Because I mean, you don't always make a lot of money as a musician. You end up doing other things like driving vans or I don't know, working all sorts of different jobs.
There's a great line I've just read in a book about the music business, and where the guy says, "Don't diss the hyphen." And the hyphen is what you are so you can be a musician hyphen barista in a coffee shop.
Yeah,
you can be a musician hyphen delivery driver. As he says, don't diss the hyphen. Always be conscious of being a multitasker in the early stages of your career.
Well, you always have to. You always got to make a living.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes you do music and you get involved in projects and you're going to do them whether you make any money or not.
Yeah,
that's the nature of what you always do. But no, it's a good time doing the Fine Cannibals. I really enjoyed it, and they chose to not after they did all the promotion for the first album. We finished up in Los Angeles. Did a lovely show, a great show there. And then they said, well, we're going to go and do the next album. Well, it took them 2 years to do the next album. Which, of course, was the Raw and the Cook, which is a massive album.
Yeah,
and had some fantastic... And they did the right thing for them, which was great. They made some fantastic... they wrote some great songs.
Yes, yeah.
So that was a very good time. So after that, I came back. I can't remember what I did. I was probably looking for some other work at the time and all the rest of it. And I ended up then, the following year, I did recording and touring with Rankin Roger.
Oh, right, yeah.
Who, unfortunately, passed away last year, which is really sad because he was so young. He was ever so young. And that was a great band. That was with myself, Fuzz Townsend on drums, Bobby Bird on guitar, and Horace Panther, bass player of the Special, Sir Horace, on bass, and Roger. So that was a really cooking band, that was. And again, we did some gigs in the UK, in Europe, and we did a couple of tours of the United States with that lineup. That was a really good time. So yeah, so that was kind of like that. So that's the early part of what I did, and then after that, my wife and I, we started a family and all that. So I ended up then going and working for a studio in Birmingham. I had a tour that didn't work out, and again, you're going to make some money. So I'd always had some recording equipment, and I spent a lot of time at Bob Lamb's studio. I recorded an album with a really good friend of mine called John Caswell, Vineyards in Japan, which is a fantastic album. And we toured that quite a bit. We did a gig. We had a hit record in France with that. And so we went gigged over in Paris. That was in the 80s as well. I did loads of recordings there for lots of different artists over the years. I ended up being, when Bob played the drums, I was on the mixing desk, so he'd go and record the drums. So I was mixing the sound for that and recording it down to tape. So that's how I learnt how to do some sound engineering. And I got interested in what microphones you use, where you put them, and all that sort of stuff. So I had some competence as doing that, and a tour didn't work out at the end of 1 year, and another friend of mine had a studio. Bob Wilson has got a studio, and he couldn't do some stuff, so I got invited to go and do a bit of sound engineering there. Then I worked as sound engineer at another studio in Birmingham, which is called Electric Avenue. And then I ended up, I did a recording session at Central Television Studios, and they were looking for somebody to do sound engineering for their studio. And I went and started working for them. And then I ended up managing that studio. So that was interesting times. Because I got to work with a lot of other artists there, only as you know, sound engineer, organised these sessions. Spent a long time there doing album with Steel Pulse. They came in a lot. I suppose that the best session I ever had there was, we had 3 nights when Stevie Wonder came in and recorded, and so I got to listen and watch him work, which was absolutely fantastic. One of the highlights of anything you could do in your life, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Wonderful life. So enjoyed that. And we had a lot of other people in there as well. And then I started setting up my own little place here, which is where we're sitting now, and started writing some music a bit of music for telly, and a little bit of music for some ads and things like that. And then I ended up teaching, for goodness sake, at a college, which me. And then I started doing bands on a more, rather than away touring all the time, I started working for some other local bands, just to because I like doing it. And so that's what I've been doing for the last umpteen years, which is when I met Rebecca. Quite a few years ago now, actually, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I'm not sure really. I mean, this has been going probably for about 6 years or so.
So I think I started doing some gigs about 3 or 4 years
ago. Yeah. You stepped in when Rick wasn't available, and as he's moved on to other things, you've taken pole position, as it were. Well, that's amazing. That's a really interesting story, and I suppose what for you would be the biggest highlight of that amazing collection?
There isn't one,
right?
Because I think you know, suddenly going from Birmingham to New York, and then you walk into a gig, and you've got a couple of few keyboards there that have been odd. You do a sound check, and then you do a show, and you go like, "I'm doing a show in New York, for God's sake!" I mean, it's things like that, really, because it has a degree of surrealness when things happen, especially when they happen quite quickly.
Yeah.
Or you're on the. I mean, I've been on done some massive festival gigs. and you just look at it and go, oh, wow, that's like, it's more people than you can even imagine.
Yeah.
And you're there and you're playing the intro to a song. So there is a degree of surrealness. So there's not. I don't think I have. It's just a great experience of life to have done some of these things, really. And occasionally people remind me of things I've completely forgotten about because it happens. I mean, this thing, it does happen fast. You suddenly go out for a month and you do like 20 dates and you come back. You're not going to remember everything.
No, I can imagine that. Yeah, you told me a story about going out to America where you sort of arrived and you were kind of left on your own for.
Yeah, I was for 3 days while the band did promotion. Yeah. So and got a lot of cash. So I walked. That wasn't in New York. That was that very first time. So I just I went to all the museums. It was fantastic, but it was in January, so it was really cold. I hadn't got the best amount of clothing with me, so. But it was great. It's the best way to see anywhere. I think when you do have a little bit of time on your hands when you are touring, and I think a great way to see places is just to get out of your hotel and have a walk around.
Yeah, that's right. Well, one of the comments I've heard is that one of the great skills of the music business is being able to wait.
Oh yeah, hurry up and wait.
Yeah,
hurry, come on, we've got to get this, and then you get there, and
there's hours go by before anything actually happens.
Yeah.
I mean, what it's done from my point of view is given somebody who is as relaxed as I think it's conceivably possible to be in all the hurly-burly, because I mean, we have some fairly hurly-burly scenarios, particularly when we're doing supports. We don't get much time for a sound check. We've got to get a 5-piece act with all the gear onto the stage, set up, sound checked, sometimes in no time at all. And I people can get fraught, but I've never ever seen you get fraught. You just say, well, it's a gig, we'll do it. Yeah. We'll do it.
Well, it's either going to happen or it's not going to happen, and 100% they always happen.
Yes, well, that's true actually. Yeah, I mean to be, I don't want to tempt fate, but at the end of the
in the career of doing like the thousands and thousands of gigs that I must have done over the years. I used to get very bent out of shape about it when you're learning, because you want things to be right. But somebody pulls something out of the bag and the gig will happen. I turned up, you could turn up and the whole PA doesn't work, and like there's no somebody hasn't turned up with something, or there's something missing, and everybody runs around and gets enough stuff to make a show happen.
Yeah,
because people have bought tickets and a show has to happen,
Well, even in my limited experience, I've seen both of those. We turned up once and the PA. It wasn't the PA didn't work. It was that an entire one side of it wasn't, getting through to the desk. That's and right. Mark had to sort of, lay a new cable in. Like the half an hour. Yeah. And the other great one that I saw when we did a little 2-gig thing in Germany. And the headline band, a guy had come over from America with one adapter, 240 volt adapter for his keyboards. So he of course contrived to leave it behind the first gig. So he turns up in, I don't know, insert name of random city, clutching his keyboard, American plugged keyboard, looking. There was a lot of running about, and the thing they produced was hilarious, because it was like we were in Eastern Germany and it was like something out of the Soviet bloc. It was a huge box with 2 handles on the side, and it had on the surface of it every conceivable socket you can imagine from around the world, including many types that I've never seen before. And in the middle of this was an American one, which he was able to plug in, and then the other end of it was like a big transformer, but it wasn't, sort of thing. The other end went into the wall. But as you say, there's always something gets done. So do you want to say a little bit about the people you're working with now? I mean, we all enjoy. I say we, Rebecca, Steve, me. We love coming to see you when you're performing with Ricky Cool in the in crowd.
Well, so 6 years now. So alongside working with Rebecca over the last few years, Ricky Cool, who's been around for a long time in various guises of the Icebergs, the Hula Boola Boys, etc. So 6 years ago, put a new band together called Ricky Corning and Crowd, which I joined with John Potter on bass, who's a good friend of mine. Now we have Harry Weston Cottrell on the drums, David Parry on guitar, and then there's Ricky Cole and Ted Bunting on the saxophones and vocals and whatever. And David sings as well. It's great. It's a great band. We dress in suits. We do the music of the early 60s period, which mods used to listen to then. And we do a show which is called Flamingo Nights, which tells the story of the Flamingo Club in Soho. That's one of the shows we do, and we go out and play songs, and it's great. And everybody comes along and sees us. Has a great time. So it's lots of rhythm and blues, lots of ska. It's a very exciting band.
It is. I mean, if you're listening in, if you ever get the chance, if they turn up to you locally, wherever you are, I thoroughly recommend you going to see them. I don't care what music genre you're into, if you're not sort of moved by, and I don't mean that in an emotional sense. I mean literally, if you don't get the beat,
get your feet going.
I'd be absolutely astonished. You're on in Birmingham later this month, and we're all lining up to come along and see you again. And it's the Jam House, and you do gig much further afield, so it's worth checking them out on Facebook and seeing where they are, because it's a great night. It's a great night.
We've got all that stuff all on the Facebook. There's loads of videos and all the rest of it.
And if you're out there thinking of a I say a party band sounds a bit. But it is, if you want to create a party atmosphere at a gig, get these guys along. They're absolutely stonking. You'll thoroughly enjoy them. So that's good. And I know you gig with lots of other people as well. It's always great to we sometimes drift along to the pub to see you wherever you're doing it. And
do some stuff with Terry Clark, which is always great. And I get to play with my friend John Caswell with that, and Howard Smith. It's great. It's good. It's a good crack, that is. And that's like, sometimes we do the pub gigs around Birmingham. They're great.
And what do you make of the RD music then?
Oh, there's absolutely brilliant. I think that the writing that Steve and Rebecca have done on More Sinner Than Saint is outstanding, and the songs are just so well crafted as a platform for Rebecca's voice. That's the way I like to. That's a very good way of putting it. And we're getting more and more of those songs into the set, aren't we, as time goes by? So it's and it's great. I mean, it's a great show. It's exciting. I've never done a show for Rebecca since the very first time where we always have a positive reaction, whatever the audience is, and people always come up afterwards and say how much I've enjoyed it, and that even if they've never seen you before. And so in a way you're out. We're out doing these shows to spread the word really to a lot more people.
Yeah, that's a big part of what we're trying to do at the moment. It's a tough road for all bands at our level, and to stand out in a sea really of original music. There's a hell of a lot of people trying to grab the attention of potential audiences, but you're right, that's what we're trying to do with the current phase, and it's great to have you on board. And as I said, it's great fun to work with you. I love all the stories from the old days. As I said, a relative newcomer to this game, and such a fantastic and varied career. And I always think back, because you started this by saying, "Oh, well, I did piano lessons and I didn't really like it," and that's true for me. That's exactly what I did. I started off, I think I got to grade 3 at piano, and unlike you, I didn't turn to modern music as a way of escaping from the drudgery of, I don't know, trying to learn Fur Elise or whatever it's called. I actually gave it up, sadly, which has probably protected the world in its own way. But you never know, do you? It's always interesting to look back to those kind of crossroads. But it's interesting to see a common experience and a common start, and then diverging in completely different directions, and then sort of coming back to meet in a peculiar way at much later on. Nigel, that's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you. I'm sure everybody listening in will have thoroughly enjoyed that. It's great to get the sort of story behind the guy on the stage. And as I said, we will be taking this out. I've got Vince, our bass player, in mind. I've got Neil, our new drummer, in mind, and then probably talk to Aidan, who steps in for you when you've got a gig clash. So there's plenty more of these background stories to be picked up upon.
This pain grows deep in my heart. Too little, too late, 'cause I shouldn't have started. No sacrifice, confessing. Nobody with the strength to listen.
So, a huge thanks to Nigel Darvill for sharing the experiences of his musical career. There's a lot going on in the RD camp at the moment as we gear up for what is going to be an interesting and exciting year. If you are on the email list, look out for an update later in the month when we will bring you the full details of the programme of gigs. In the meantime, keep in touch on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and if you haven't done so already, why not subscribe to our YouTube channel. As usual, we are offering a merchandise discount to podcast listeners, and this episode's code is Nigel, Nigel, all in capitals, which you enter at the appropriate point in the checkout process at www.rebeccadowns.com/shop. As it's January, it's a 10% discount and it will be applicable for 2 weeks from Monday the 13th of January. Thank you for listening to Downs Your Way. I'm Colin Speller and I will be back in 2 weeks' time with another episode. Please check in then. Goodbye and once again, Happy New Year.